Pete, how you doing, my friend?
Good. How you doing, Todd?
All good. Let me just throw this up. I put up an article today. I just decided I'm going to go after this decision to possibly give Ukraine Tomahawks. What do you think of this? I mean, I just said it's enabling nuclear war. If you give Ukraine Zelensky Tomahawk missiles, which can carry a nuclear warhead, um, what say you?
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, his answer was that he's thinking about it, right?
Well, he said he made a
He's
decision, and I have to see where it's going to be sent. To
Yeah, I
me,
have to
that's a
see
soft
where the
yes. So
right,
maybe it's
right.
negotiation. I don't know.
No, so he has not agreed to send them. So that's the key point. However, it just connects the dots that what we saw Zelensky's sly smile. He had a one-on-one him, Kellogg and Trump when he came into the UN last week, and that's when they talked him into all this stuff, and that's when he came out with the 180-degree change of
Yeah.
views, and whether it was psychological jujitsu, negotiation tactic, but we're getting to the point where he's got to throttle these negotiation tactics.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say this to scare them or whatever. As we're going to talk about this morning, things are not going in the right direction. The
Well, he's
Europeans
scaring us.
are
He's not
are
scaring
are
Putin.
war crazy, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so, but what I'm pointing out is the potential for escalation right now is higher than it's ever been before. The
Hmm.
potential for both purposeful and accidental escalation is higher than it's ever been before. And we've been narrating the propaganda about the drones, and that has just completely spun out of control. All of Europe is living in this state of fear and panic because their leaders. We lived through this. We lived through it in the pandemic, 2020 election. We lived through the propaganda machine of our own government and our own mainstream media,
Hmm.
pounding false messages. The Europeans have been locked in that longer than us and have nowhere near what we had as far as resistance and independent social media,
Hmm.
and shows like this that people could go to and get some glimpse of reality. But that's not happening over there. And to me, the cruise missile thing is just one more piece of it. Todd, we're getting to the phase of insanity and
Yes.
senselessness now in Europe,
Yes.
and Zelensky too. I don't want to forget him. That we might need to start titling every episode of this show, "Dear President Trump, please listen if
Yeah.
you want to stop the fighting," because what's first very obvious is he's being completely bamboozled by incompetent advisors. The main one of whom has a massive conflict of interest that should disqualify him immediately from having any input into our country's negotiation on what's going to happen. But somehow these guys have locked him in, and he continues to. If someone would put it to him like this, do you know right now you're doing exactly what John O'Brien would do, what
Hmm.
Joe Biden would do, what Barack Obama would do?
Hmm.
Uh, this is their war. This is what they're doing. All these people, and then the EU, every one of whom did everything they could to prevent him from being reelected in 2024, sided, endorsed, Kamala Harris. And yet, so there's no need to try to appease them or be nice to them, because what they're doing is holding Europe hostage, and what they're doing with their lies and their propaganda against Russia is, up there with these other crimes of the century that we've been talking about. So,
Yeah, it's insane. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just saying. So Europe continues to bang the war drums with their empty rhetoric. We'll send troops, yet they have no troops to send, and no citizens who would support sending troops. The EU says we'll send billions to Ukraine. We're going to increase our budgets. None of those funding streams go into effect until 27, 28. And that includes the funding to increase their defense budgets. But the EU, regardless, the EU can't stop talking about war and have worked their citizens, who are a captive audience of a completely controlled mainstream media in Europe, into a state of propaganda-induced fear and panic. And we're going to show that there's, supposedly Russian drones over Munich, Russian drones over Copenhagen. And every one of them has turned out to be exactly what, if someone had asked you or me, hey, a drone was seen over the Copenhagen airport, what do you think it was? We wouldn't even hesitate. Some kid with a drone who heard that drones are flying near airports. If you remember what happened here in the summer of 24, when those, and it turned out the FAA was allowing a company to test drones. But as soon as the first ones were sighted on the East Coast, every young man with a drone began flying his drone at night, pulling it out of the closet, dusting off the dust and putting it up in the air. So the drone propaganda again. Sorry, I just to sum it up.
Yeah,
is this example of create the big lie, spread it on as many mediums as possible, and then pivot off the lie to create more propaganda. And that's what we're seeing, in a whole new phase now with Europe.
Well, I was just going to say, just for our audience sake, there's been drone sightings all over Europe. But was it in Germany or Denmark where they said it was a young guy with a drone that they captured? I think it was Germany.
Yeah, they captured 2 guys in Germany, and one guy in Copenhagen was also a young guy with a drone. They were all that.
And this is blown up where Europe is using this as a catalyst, as you say, to stoke fear and panic, and a way to get the war started. I mean, it's completely obvious. We've talked about Ukraine's flying them into Poland, calling them Russian drones. It's insane. And the Kremlin has denied it, of course, but they could be lying. But I don't think these are Russian drones. I think they're self-created. What do you think?
There's no doubt. They've already, the guys in Munich were arrested. The guy in Copenhagen was arrested. And of course, you shouldn't be flying a drone near an airport anyway. So it's definitely an arrestable offense.
Mm-hmm.
But there was never any doubt. They fueled the flames of fear and panic, both Germany and in Denmark. And yet they knew from the nanosecond those drones were reported. Remember, they're flying outside an airport. So the FAA, the equivalent of the FAA in Europe, is monitoring its radar, sees where you can track where an object started from. You'll see where it's took off from. There was never any doubt. These weren't coming from some Russian ghost ship, out in the Baltic or whatever. It's just, it's completely beyond belief that they use this to perpetuate this fear thing. And MERS is the worst one. Germany has gone to a whole new level. They're blaming everything, all the political dissent. They're saying Russia. It's the playbook from the Democratic Party from 2017 forward. Saying that the Russians are controlling social media, causing dissent within the country, causing economic dissent, sabotaging their economy. It's really hard to believe. He won't stop lying. But what's so hard to fathom is these guys have to know they're they're fiddling with the fate of humanity, and yet onward they push. They just continue doubling down week after week after week. So, desperate men make desperate moves. There's some desperation behind this. We've got our own theories, but it's another one that's just historians will, I think, will be the only ones who can solve this one.
Well, we have to stop it. I mean, that's because we're rambling, we're rolling down the hill toward nuclear war, and it's got to stop. So,
Yeah.
As I said earlier in the show, there's that song 99 Red Balloons. Here I am sitting pretty in the dust that was a city. I don't want to be the guy that is doing that. I want to be the guy before the war is saying stop the damn war as loud as I can. So that's what we're doing here. I got one from Orban. He's been pretty adamant. The West talks about protecting Ukraine, but in reality, it's an imperialist seizure of land, resources, and money. The unfortunate Ukrainian people are being robbed, and those who push for war disguise exploitation as protection. Do not harbor illusions. This is about power and profit. So this is what Russia's been saying for some time. Orban seems to be in line. I've got a video. It's not this exact video, but the only one I could find was another one if you want to play that. It's similar.
Yeah, no, but leave that up because those words should be etched in stone. And Orban's been a hero of this, standing up to the autocratic EU as they try to bring everyone in line. How dare you disagree with the majority? Everything about the EU is being shown to be a complete farce. There's a single vote veto power in the EU. That's the way it was set up, and they're already talking about getting rid of that. But Orban is, the sign of hope. You've got Hungary. You've got we just had in the Czech Republic an election that the populist won, so very high potential there. And Orban, we have other videos. He knows he's an active target of the EU, and of course, his life, unfortunately, is the first thing that has to be protected. But Hungary and the Color Revolution, the EU Color Revolution teams, they've got him, center sector. He's been targeted. I don't know. We also have some stuff from Georgia. There's the Color Revolution in Georgia by the EU. So fifth attempt in 4 years in order to take over Georgia. The beauty of what's happening right now, and it needs to continue to happen, but the beauty is the gig is being exposed on color revolutions. And for our audience, I want to give the proper definition of color revolution so everyone knows what we're talking about. A color revolution is a term used to describe a sophisticated form of warfare that foreign governments and their agents use to create the conditions for political instability and eventually regime change in the targeted country. And to accomplish their purpose, there's a playbook, a written playbook for color revolutions. To accomplish their purpose of regime change, the foreign governments, and without exception, we're talking NATO countries, the U.S., France, Britain, and Germany are the color revolution countries, use cutting-edge technology and psychology, as well as a strong role of non-government organizations. This is Soros's groups. They do the groundwork. It's also a massive money laundering operation, and along with contractors to sponsor, plan, and organize the opposition, the messaging, and the protests themselves. So everything we saw in 217 here in America, that was Color Revolution playbook. Ukraine's been through it twice, 2004 and 2014. We, the U.S. government and the EU, both times overthrew the duly elected government of Ukraine. So twice. Georgia, they've tried 4 times. You just heard the fifth. And of course, Kyrgyzstan has also been the victim. So color revolutions are what they do. They're like little babies when they can't get their way, they just go and overthrow the government.
Yeah.
And they do it in a way that's never works. It doesn't have any. It doesn't.
No
It doesn't
legitimacy.
produce any results. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it happened in Romania. Well, it's the old saying, you can vote your way in, but you have to shoot your way out. I mean, because once they get in power, they don't leave. Just like in Romania, where you had a populist win and they literally canceled the election. That was the EU. Everybody knows it, and America's involved in that because we want this base on the Black Sea coast in Romania. So it's one way or the other. They're going to get their guys in, and we're hopeful on Orban, and so far Georgia has resisted. We'll see.
Yep.
That's the fourth one in Georgia, right? Or fifth one, it says.
Yeah.
Wow.
The fifth attempt. Yep.
Amazing.
They've been nonstop. And it's the EU trying to overthrow these governments and put their people in charge. And if you read my first article, it's on Substack. The history and chronology, the chronological history of the war in Ukraine. I explain in great detail about color revolutions and the reason they need to be outlawed by the United States is they never work. This is a bunch of State Department and CIA blue bloods, meaning their only experiences with their Ivy League diploma that they got, and then they went in and they pick out these leaders of other countries. The other countries not picking them. These individuals are. We, the people of America, are. These individuals are, and they always pick the wrong people. Going all the way back to when we were little kids, Antonio Somoza in Nicaragua. The track record is not being hyperbolic. It's 0 and like 1,000. We've done 1,000 of them, and 1,000 have turned out badly, and 0 have turned out well over time. So, of course, the reason they don't make sense is biologic. You're messing with nature. You're putting a person who doesn't deserve, who's never been part of, who the people have not chosen into power. And, that formula never works out because they're not motivated properly. They don't have anyone to keep them in check. And, they answer to someone who doesn't live in the country they're supposed to be governing.
Well, that's what we had here in the U.S. with Biden, obviously. It was a form of that. So,
we lived through it.
Yeah. Let's listen to this from Orban real quick.
Hungarian no to more money, billions of the European Union to Ukraine. Will you still be against it?
Yeah, we don't support it because in our understanding, there is one simple mission to be done by the European Union to support President Donald Trump efforts to make peace. That's what we should do, nothing more.
Do you trust Donald Trump to make the peace?
If is there anybody in the globe who is able to manage a peace now, he's the President of the United States.
But how come your colleagues, for example, our Prime Minister in the Netherlands, Dick Schoof, they don't really trust it?
But I have to represent the opinion of my own nation, and the Hungarians are still very strongly believe that we have to target all our efforts and capacity to make peace as soon as we can. First of all, because of the very much Christian reason, because we are losing lives daily, thousands, which is totally against our values. And second, economically as well, because the war is very, very expensive. We have a calculation what was the price paid by the Hungarian families in the last 3 years just because of the war, creating a higher energy price. The bonds, the interest rates went up, and we lost many export possibilities in Russia. Altogether, we lost huge amount of money per family in Hungary. So I would not like to continue that. If now, luckily enough, we have a leader, President Trump, who takes the responsibility to launch for peace negotiations.
So,
I wish
Oman,
Trump would listen to that.
yeah, no kidding. I mean, I think that was just 2 days ago. So,
It was really good.
yeah, really good. I want to also play this one from Putin, just talking about some of the situations going on.
Years ago, when the special military operation was started, some criticism was voiced regarding the Russian army, regarding the Russian state, that we are lagging behind in some aspects. And some failures that occurred were due to that period of time. Have we catched up? And secondly, once we're speaking about the Russian soldiers, at the moment, what is the situation on the front line? What is your take?
Well, most importantly, it's not that we lag behind, but we ain't seen some of the novel things. Not that we wanted to do something, but we failed to do that on time. Some things are brand new for us, and this is my first point. My second point is that we've been waging a war. We've been manufacturing the military hardware, but on the other side, very many countries, all NATO countries, have been waging war against us. All of them put together, and there are instructors, unfortunately, who actually participate in the hostilities.
He goes on to say that Russia's, very well armed, and Europe is insane, wanting to fight with Russia in a major war, which is obvious. I mean, it's obviously that's what they're driving. They couldn't get it in Donbass. He's going too slow there, so they have to talk about Poland, and that's not working. So we got the drones. Maybe that'll work. So who knows? What do you think?
Yeah, I listened to the whole thing, and he really between him and Trump, what we've seen in just this last year of talking to the press, answering questions, saying things out loud is unbelievable compared to where we were, compared to the way European leaders interact with the people. You're seeing a real standard right there, and everything he said was accurate. To start out with, the guy asked, "Hey, in the beginning, we were behind," and he didn't really address that, but it's true. They were an old army. They had not fought together since Chechnya, which is not Grenada. It's Chechnya is a World War II type experience. So they had guys, with 20 years experience who had, senior guys with combat experience, but none others.
Mm-hmm.
And you need junior guys with combat experience. So what they've grown into since then, it's not, you don't have to, you don't have to compromise your loyalty to your own country, whether that's the U.S. or some other country. When you're fighting, when an army and a military fights like this for 3.5 years, they become a fighting machine. They become this adaptive, finely honed machine, and it takes a couple of years. It takes a couple of battles. It takes a bunch of guys talking about it and changing things, and that's what's happened in Russia. And he goes on in that interview to say, "I think we have probably the most effective military in the world," and there's nothing wrong. You don't have to, again, think you're a traitor to agree with that. I've said it over and over on this show. In those first years after 9/11, the U.S. military was not, without a doubt, the most powerful military on the planet. Our combined arms integration, experience level, what we changed from the lessons learned right off the bat made us a war fighting machine.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it takes. So it's just reality, and Europe should be able to grasp that reality. They're like a minor league baseball team thinking about playing a pro team. They have no ability to go up against Russia, especially the Europeans, because they've allowed their militaries to fall into such a state of disarray. So he's right about what he's saying, and again, the fact that he's saying it and openly talking to the press is another example of how badly the European leaders are failing their people.
Well, it's obvious that Russia is, is focused on East Ukraine. I don't believe they have the wherewithal, the stroke to go into, Estonia or Poland. They just don't have it. So this is
No.
all a false thing. And you have Zelensky out there saying, well, one way or the other, we're going to be part of the EU and NATO, like saying, I'm going to make it happen. I mean, dude, who the hell are you?
And he's threatening Orban. He's threatening Hungary, like literally threatening him. We have a couple of clips of it. It just shows what a tyrant he is. And same thing, no elections. I don't know if you have that clip. We have another clip.
I couldn't find that video.
So they're still beating men on the streets within an inch of their life. And folks, again, the fact that they're beating creating forced conscripts right there should tell everyone all they need to know. President Trump should be able to watch 2 of those and go, oh, why have you been lying to me, to his advisors? Because you can't be a country that has any chance to win a war if your own citizens don't want to fight for it and are fighting for their lives to not fight for it. And to put it in even more context, Russia's military is all volunteers. So there's no forced conscription in Russia. They have what we have, a system where you have to register for a draft, at draft age and whatnot. But these are volunteers. Russia's 100% volunteer, and it's taking in over 35,000 new soldiers a month. So, you don't have to have an opinion. You just need to look at this war factually and understand everything that's being told to us. Everything that's not hyperbolic, again, is a mirage. It's a propaganda. It's designed to provide propaganda and to create an alternate reality. Ukraine can win. Russia started the war. Just give them more money and they'll be able to hold on.
Russia's threatening Europe.
Fake. Right. There's nuclear armed drones flying into our airports. It's insanity. Everything they're doing is a propaganda lie. Desperate men make desperate moves, and the desperation is showing here. But what should get our attention from this desperation is, as the desperation goes up, the potential for escalation goes up. And these European leaders are playing with fire. And, if they keep playing with it, they're going to get burned. So I'd say my recommendation to President Trump can stop this thing tomorrow. And here's what he needs to do. It's not pulling out of Ukraine is the obvious, but that'll actually to separate these people will actually take a while. All he needs to do is call another meeting with Putin and then tell the world we are normalizing economic relations with Russia. We have agreed to a peace treaty. We will not go to war with Russia. We will have nothing to do with this Ukraine. And we'll announce more about the economic integration in the coming days. Right there, he'll have stopped the Europeans. There would be no even thought of, okay, how can we sanction them? There also will stop them from trying to ensnare the U.S. Into this thing, to bring us back in, to create this fake drone threat or whatever. It'll knock the bottom out of it right now, but it's the right thing to do. He needs to stop with this, psychological jujitsu manipulation, negotiation tactics, and do the right thing. And the right thing to do is to not just, normalize relations with Russia, but to admit, how the war started, acknowledge that it was the EU and the US, and acknowledge the series of catastrophic decisions.
He did in the beginning. He did in the beginning.
Made by Biden administration, unelected officials. doesn't need to. The worst thing he can do is complement those decisions, which is what something like the Tomahawk missile decision would do. He needs to do the opposite, and that would end the war right away.
Pete, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. I'll get you the clip as soon as I can today, and as soon as my guys are done with it. So thank you again for everything and all your insight. Really appreciate it.
You bet, Todd. Take
All right.
care.
Take care. Bye.